Assalamualaikum. My name is Ahmad Akmarino bin Ahmad Zawawi, and this is our team members.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Yuzai. Today we are going to explore a topic that combines organic chemistry with occupational health. A subject that's not only scientifically interesting but also extremely important in real world industrial setting. So we will learn about introduction, chemical structure, sources and use of benzene, health hazard and toxicity, chemical behavior and exposure limit, industrial hygiene measures, case study or real world examples, summary, visual and extra. Now let's start with a definition of aromatic compounds. So aromatic compounds are a class of organic compounds that contains a stable ring of carbon atom with delocalized electrons. These compounds, like benzene, are known for their unique chemical stability and wide-ranging applications in industries such as plastic, dyes, pharmaceuticals, and even fuel production. However, behind their chemical usefulness lies a serious concern: toxicity. Among aromatic compounds, benzene is one of the most widely used and studied, while it plays a vital role in industrial chemistry. And it is also recognized as a highly toxic and carcinogenic substance. In this presentation, we will take a closer look at benzene, its chemical nature, how it's used in industry, the health hazard it poses, and how we, as future professionals in industrial hygiene, must understand and manage the risks associated with its exposure. Our goal is to raise awareness about how something chemically useful can also be physically harmful, and to highlight the importance of safety practices and regulation in protecting workers and the environment from exposure. For the next point, we will talk about chemical structure and properties of benzene. So the basics. Benzene is the simplest aromatic hydrocarbon consisting of 6 carbon atoms arranged in a hexagonal ring with one hydrogen attached to each carbon. What makes benzene unique is its delocalized electron system. Instead of having alternating single and double bonds like a typical alkene, the electrons are shared equally across the ring, forming a stable, symmetrical structure, and this is known as resonance. And next, the delocalization leads to exceptional stability, equal bond lengths between all 6 carbon, a characteristic planar cyclic structure, non-reactivity towards addition reaction typical of alkene. Next, in terms of physical properties, benzene is colorless, volatile liquid with a sweet odor and have a boiling point between 18.1 Celsius and melting point 5.5 Celsius. It is immiscible with water but soluble in organic solvents, highly flammable and lipophilic, meaning it dissolves in fats and tissues easily. This unique combination of chemical stability and volatility makes benzene both industrially useful and hazardous, especially in environment where inhalation exposure is possible.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. My name is Amar Sazwan. Today I want to talk about source and use of benzene. First of all, industry use. Benzene has many industry use. Benzene is central to many of industry use of a benzene as it is used as a starting chemical for plastic, polystyrene, synthetic rubber, nylon fiber, and resins. And also, because benzene is made for detergent, dyes, pesticides, lubricant, and a whole range of pharmaceutical. The petrochemical industry uses a benzene primarily as a precursor and a solvent in chemical synthesis. The second one is natural sources and human-made source. Benzene has a natural present occur in a crude oil itself, alongside volcanic eruption and forest fire from combustion. Other human-made sources of benzene would be in a cigarette smoke from tobacco and from petroleum product, along with gas and diesel pollutant from vehicle emission. Many solvent products are made with benzene including paint, adhesive and degreasers. The result in is that smokers and people who live in urban or industrial area may be able to expose to benzene frequently and regularly. Okay, so for the last one is a typical exposed occupation. Typical exposed occupation to benzene include working in a chemical plant, petroleum refineries, laboratory, or testing, and working in field service station. etc. Workers in the benzene industry may be handling raw material, or they may be in institutions where benzene vapor are released. If these workers do not use a adequate protective measure, they may be incidentally exposed to benzene unknowingly. So we move to the next part. Is health hazard and toxicity. So the first one is route of exposure. Benzene can enter the human body primarily through the inhalation of vapor, especially in a workplace with a poor ventilation. It can also be absorbed through the skin, particularly when handling benzene containing product without the protective equipment (PPE). Ingestion is a less common but can occur accidentally. So here are two types of effect. So the first one is short-term acute. Short exposure to high benzene level include dizziness, headache, sleepiness, confusion, and nausea. It irritates the eyes, nose, throat, and skin. Usually, the symptoms disappear when the exposure is stopped. However, in severe conditions, medical help may become necessary. So, for the long term, chronic. Long-term exposure to benzene is a far more deleterious and has been classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer (IARC) as being carcinogenic to humans. Leukemia, especially acute myeloid leukemia (AML), is closely associated with this substance. Protracted exposure might also impair bone marrow, causing anemia, immunosuppression, and the inability to clot. Neurological side effects from mood swing and tremor to memory loss can also take place. Here's some example of short-term and long-term effect on body. So we move on to the next part, which is chemical behavior for benzene. Benzene is volatile with a low boiling point, which is 80.1 Celsius, making it inhalation the main exposure route. Its non-polar nature allows it to easily cross cell membrane and accumulate in fatty tissues. Metabolized in the liver to toxic intermediate, for example, benzene oxide and phenol. These metabolites interfere with blood cell production in bone marrow. Next, we will discuss the prevention measure for exposure to benzene to our health. Firstly, we can wear personal protective equipment, which is PPE. Use air purifying respirators (APRs) only for concentration below the ideal H and with appropriate organic vapor cartridge. Select gloves made of material resistant to benzene, such as Viton and Teflon, to protect hands from getting splashed from the benzene liquids. Chemical splash goggles required to protect against a splash of liquid benzene to prevent it uh, from splash to our eyes. Another one is impermeable clothing. For example, apron coveralls made of Viton should be worn. Next prevention measure is monitoring air quality. For example, gas detector. Okay, the first one is use personal pumps with sorbent tubes. For example, charcoal tubes worn by workers to collect air sample for laboratory analysis. Install real-time benzene detector in area where release are possible. Use handheld PID, which is photoionization detector, or FID, flame ionization detector, meters for detection, confined space entry, and during emergency response. Uh, for the last prevention measure, we can safe handling and storage procedure. Label all containers with clear warning about benzene hazard to prevent we getting confused between hazard and other compounds. Store benzene in tightly closed container in a cool, well-ventilated area away from direct sunlight and heat. Use closed system for transferring benzene whenever possible. And lastly, minimize the number of workers exposed and the duration of exposure. Assalamualaikum. My name is Ning Amri Ifan bin Muhammad Faris. Today I want to talk about a case study or real world examples. First, we have a shoe manufacturing workers in Taiwan and China. During the 1917 and 1918, all of the factory workers developed blood disorder and some even developed leukemia. The factory worker were also exposed to insufficient ventilation and other equipment that negated their protective equipment then and causing dire long-term exposure several health issues. Secondly, we have a Texas City explosion 2005. While benzene wasn't completely to blame, this incident within a BP oil refinery demonstrates how poor safety processes eradicate the safety of people. Along with massive explosion, emergency globaling choking the amount of a benzene into the air, or were discovered to have a significant management and regulatory violation with the combination of regulating and monitoring chemical accidents. The last one, we have a Zychem chemical plant in Poland. Worker exposure to long-term worker setting with benzene were the norm due to all the abuses of equipment and inadequate personal protection. Many employers develop leukemia or other blood-based disorder, leading again to labor action and the changes need to respond to protect the workplace safety against toxic abuse. The above example demonstrate the importance of industrial hygiene, government or internal investigation and enforcement of protocol with regulatory enforcement and ongoing monitoring exposure to chemical at work. Okay, next I want to talk about the summary or conclusion. First, let's talk about a recap of significant hazard. For recap of significant hazard, benzene is commonly used chemical with several toxic effect. It is an irritant and chronic carcinogen. Prolonged exposure can lead to irreversible effects such as leukemia, bone marrow suppression, and neurological changes. Next, we have importance of awareness. Benzene is a commonly used chemical with several toxic effects. It is an irritant and chronic carcinogen. Prolonged exposure can lead to irreversible effects such as leukemia, bone marrow suppression, and neurological changes. Okay, lastly, let's talk about the conclusion for this topic. Conclusion for this topic is protecting against the hazard of benzene begin with the adequate education, training, and a dedication to workplace safety. Employers have a responsibility to meet their occupational safety obligation, conduct risk assessment regularly, and conduct health surveillance of workers that may be impacted. By raising awareness and preventing exposure, we can ensure that when it comes to the significance of the long-term effect of benzene, we are protecting our workers. The conclusion from all of this is safety is not an option. Safety is our responsibility.